Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Concern Podcast, where we unpack political, social, economic, and cultural stories shaping our world. I'm Emmanuel Taban, and on this section of our podcast, I want us to talk about one recent trending moment that happened in Kenya, where the General Secretary of one of the political parties, that is ODM, the Orange Democratic Party, um, Edwin Sifuna, had an interview with Citizen TV's Yvonne at the Explainer, and he spoke so boldly on so many things. And Sifuna's interview has caused a lot of confusion within the ODM political party and even the broad base, but also that interview caused a lot of confusion, and it was received by mixed feelings by the public, especially those who are in support of the broad-based government and those who are against it. And just before we proceed with this video, if this is your first time watching a video from our channel, please just request you to subscribe so that you can be notified of other videos that will come after this. And yeah, it's just a way of making this channel grow. And yeah, as I said, that we're mainly going to talk about that incident where Sifuna was interviewed at Citizen TV, and it is one of the most talked about moment right now in national televisions and in different debates. So many people referred to that interview of Sifuna, especially those being hosted in different shows like on national television, but also in radio shows and all over social media. It's the most talked about moment right now in Kenya. And for those who don't know, Sifuna is not only the Secretary General of the Orange Democratic Movement, but also he served as the Senator for Nairobi County. And this is his first term. I mean, his first time in the parliament as an elected member of parliament in the Senate. And Sifuna has been the Secretary General of the Orange Democratic Movement for the last 7 years. He is now in his 8th term, the longest leader who has served as the SG of the Orange Democratic Movement. And also, just to give you a context, for those who don't know so much about the Orange Democratic Movement, I think ODM is the second political party that has been in existence for the longest after KANU. And maybe just to give you a context, before I talk so much about what Sifuna said during that interview, my analysis is mainly going to be answering the question of on whose behalf was Sifuna speaking on that interview, and if at all, if Sifuna was speaking his own mind, if what he spoke during that show was not the stand of the Orange Democratic Movement or the stand of Baba, why is Sifuna not why is he not fired yet? Why is he still the secretary of the Orange Democratic Movement if what he speaks is so much contrary to what the members and leadership of the political party believes in? Why is Sifuna still the SG of Orange Democratic Movement? And we will also look at if at all maybe Sifuna is just trying to create his own political space so he can thrive in the future. But these are the things we will answer in the very last. But just to give you a context on how this broad base came into, we all know that in 2022, when Kenya was preparing for the general election, the political parties ganged themselves into two major political coalitions. One is the Kenya Kwanza political coalition, which was mainly led by the United Democratic Alliance, or the UDA, of William Arap Samuel Ruto. And we also have other political parties like the Fort Kenya of Moses Wetangula and other smaller political parties. They ganged themselves to form the Kenya Kwanza political coalition. On the other side, we also had other political parties that ganged themselves into one side to face the Kenya Kwanza political coalition, and that was the Azimio la Umoja political coalition. And in that political alliance, the major political parties were the Orange Democratic Movement, the ODM, we had the NAG Kenya, which was initially under Martha Karua, who was the running mate for Raila Amolo Odinga. We also had the YPI of Kalonzo Musyoka and the DAP Kenya for Eugene Wamalwa. So these political parties on the other side, they formed they ganged together to form what came to be known as the Azimio and ODM political party. So after the elections was held in August 2022 and the results were released, the Electoral Commission declared William Arap Samoei Ruto as the winner of that elections, or the Kenya Kwanza political coalition was declared as winners of that election, and Ruto became the president with Rigathi Gachagua, which was his running mate, as the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. But after the declaration of the results, of course, the Azimio la Umoja political party, which was mainly spearheaded by Raila Amolo Odinga or Baba, actually contested the results of that election. They say there were some instances where the elections were rigged, and they made an appeal to the courts, and the court declared that they actually stood with the declaration of the IEBC that William Ruto was indeed the winner of the election. I think there was some kind of subtle frauds, but that wouldn't actually account into a massive change. That's why the court stood with the decision that William Ruto or Kenya Kwanza were the winners of the 2022 general elections. So immediately when the results were declared, subsequently, just after a few months, things did not work out well. Ruto came in blaming at first the previous government of Uhuru Kenyatta, which has actually met the country, the government bankrupt and all sort of stuff. But after some months, the same problems seems to persist, and therefore the Azimio la Umoja political coalition, which was mainly led by Raila Amolo Odinga, they went on the street, they protested, and the protest was mainly because people were saying the high cost of living, and also there was there were continuous intention of putting Kenya into debt. So the protest became so much popular, and therefore later on in 2024 as well, there was another protest that came, and that was the massive one, and that protest was mainly led by the Gen Zs. On June 25th, the young Kenyans went on the street protesting against a punitive finance bill that was introduced, where the government of Kenya under the Kenya Kwanza political coalition was seeking to tax everything almost. One of them is that they taxed so many things, and therefore the young people of Kenya detested, they opposed that, and they went on the street protesting against the finance bill, asking that this bill be removed in totality. They went on the street, they asked the parliamentarians actually to not vote in favor of that bill, but they went on anyway and voted for it. However, the president was in a very terrible stage already, because there was so much opposition from young people and all other political parties, especially the one in the opposition. They were so much in criticizing Ruto's government in so many ways, and therefore bringing in the Gen Z revolution was just another way of adding on the burden that Ruto was already carrying. And Ruto seems to have heard the cry of the young people, and therefore he didn't enact the bill into a law. He actually withdrew from it. He didn't sign. But as a way of, because he knew he was already going through so much, what he did was that he went on and then tapped on some of the experts which were under the Azimio la Umoja political party. He dissolved his cabinet. He dissolved the whole cabinet, and then he reappointed new ministers or CSS, cabinet secretaries. And some of the cabinet secretaries that were brought in during that time were mainly from the opposition, which was ODM. So they were brought in. Around 5 of them came to be CSS in Ruto's government. And from that time, there was a kind of confusion that the opposition and the government already working together, which was one thing that Ruto was opposing so much when he was actually campaigning to be president. He was referring to the previous instances where Raila Amolo Odinga was in bed with Uhuru Kenyatta, and then he was saying that was the major cause of all the problem. But 2 years later, when he took over power, he created the same issue. He brought in the opposition into government, and therefore it became so hard to notice where the opposition is and where the government is. And as a result of that, other political parties started withdrawing out of the coalition, the Azimio and ODM political coalition, and the first person who withdrew was Martha Karua. And then other political coalitions, other political parties were left. And ODM seems to be already in government. They're working right now with government. But since that time, there was no formal agreement that would actually show that these two political parties, the Kenya Kwanza and the ODM, were actually in some kind of a legal working agreement. There was no legal working agreement, and therefore in March they formulated an agreement, a memorandum of understanding that actually contained some points that the two political parties, or ODM and UDA, wants to work on. Kenya Kwanza and ODM wants to work on. They initiated 10 points, and among them is that there should be the government of Ruto should stop abduction. There shouldn't be, work on the debts and things to do with the compensation of all the victims of the protest. These were some of the points that they came up with. But as the General Secretary of a political party, Edwin Sifuna, of course, he is one focal person who should be in the process, in the major process of drafting that document that would be known as the Memorandum of Understanding. And because he had a constitutional mandate, the constitution of the ODM actually gave him that mandate to do that, and therefore he did the process not as of his will, but as mandated by the constitution of his political party. He went on, drafted together with other party organs, of course. They drafted the Memorandum of Understanding, and in March they held an event in KICC, in Kenyatta International Convention Center, where they formalized the marriage between these two political parties. The Kenya Kwanza and the ODM came together, and Sifuna has always been very consistent in opposing William Arap Samoei Ruto. He has been so much consistent. And during that event that happened at KICC, where the two political parties, or the two principal, Ruto and Raila Amolo Odinga, came together, actually Sifuna was called to read the first statement of the agreement. The secretaries from the two political parties, from UDA and ODM, were called. And when Sifuna stood, you could read from his face that he was in a wrong place. He didn't actually prepare to be in that position, but it was because the political party, or the constitution of his party, gave him that mandate to do that, and he therefore stood up and spoke and read the statement on that document, not as personally as Sifuna, but as mandated by his political party. That's why when he stood up, he said he is reading that to make it so clear, so that people knows what that agreement or what that document it is and what it is not. He spoke, and he has always been a very, very, very critical of William Arap Samoei Ruto. And Sifuna has actually held his criticism for Ruto since 2022 up to date. He has not shifted his criticism. He has been so much consistent. So this week earlier, the leader of ODM, Raila Amolo Odinga, gave a press statement. He spoke, and in that brief statement, he gave his position on where is ODM, they are standing with the Kenya Kwanza government. And then he said they will support Ruto even after 2027. And just after some few days, when Raila gave the press statement, SG Sifuna, or Senator Sifuna, who is also the SG of ODM, came into a live interview at Citizen TV with Yvonne, where he actually gave so much information regarding the ODM political party and their marriage or the broad-based government between ODM and then Kenya Kwanza. He spoke so much. Interestingly, he spoke so many things, and that has actually met so many people in government, in ODM, and members of the public to actually, just get into some set of confusion. They don't know exactly where ODM stands, because Baba came in the other day, he spoke differently. Sifuna came on Citizen TV and he gave a very different statement, and people were wondering on whose behalf is Sifuna speaking. Whenever he speaks, like, does Sifuna speaks his own mind, or he speaks on the position of the political party of ODM? That has been one point that has been confusing so many people. But here I want us to answer these two questions then. One, is Sifuna speaking under the authority of Baba or Raila Odinga, or Sifuna is just speaking his own mind? I have two major points here that I want to answer as to whom Sifuna was speaking for. One, and these are my thoughts. One is that I have a notion that Raila Odinga doesn't want to come out so boldly and say that they are not going to be supporting William Arap Samuel Ruto until 2027. He just want to be like on the middle ground, to be looked like he is against, he is not so much fully supporting Ruto, but just like that. But I feel that Sifuna, whenever he speaks for Raila Odinga, he speaks for ODM. He does that. Because there was an incident recently during the funeral for Member of Parliament for Kaspu, Honorable Were. In that funeral, Mr. Sifuna was there, Raila Odinga was there, but also Ruto was there. And when Sifuna stood and spoke during the funeral, he spoke so bitterly against William Arap Samuel Ruto government and broad-based. And then when Baba stood and spoke, he responded to the statement given by Sifuna, and he said that Sifuna is the SG of ODM and he is the spokesperson of ODM, and whenever Sifuna speaks, he speaks the position of ODM. But he warned Sifuna that he should always not be so much bitter. Then it was from that time that I realized that Raila Odinga has actually authorized Sifuna to speak the way he does. Whenever he speaks on the position of ODM. And I feel whatsoever Sifuna spoke on Citizen TV was the position of ODM. One, I want to bring out some very interesting moments during the interview. Sifuna was asked that if he would actually impeach William Arap Samuel Ruto, and he said on his personal capacity, if William Arap Samuel Ruto would be taken to the Senate, he will impeach him without even blinking, very boldly. Second moment, Sifuna was asked about the opposition, and very interestingly, he said that William Arap Samuel Ruto has succeeded in bullying the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka by saying these people don't have any agenda. What they have in their mind is that Ruto must go, Ruto must go. But then Sifuna was saying that Ruto must know that if there is one agenda, it is kicking him out of power. That is the national priority. That's what he said. And then went on and said that the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka should be very bold. And I feel that moment alone, Sifuna was trying to stand so much with the opposition. He's trying to show that he's not so much allied to the government, but also he is, at some point, maybe they're going to be with the opposition. So therefore, he didn't want to be so much critical of the opposition. And also, you remember when he was asked about Matiang'i, he said Matiang'i has faults. But if Matiang'i will help, will keep William Ruto out of power, so be it. This means that he wasn't so much critical of the opposition at all in that very interview. And therefore, I have a feeling that Baba himself still want to leave some part where, in case things don't work out towards 2027, he wouldn't be so much hated with the opposition. He can still find room in the opposition. That is what I feel they were doing. And also, the other thing that came in my mind is that if Sifuna was not speaking for ODM, if he wasn't speaking for Baba, if what Sifuna spoke was his own statement, he was expressing himself, then I have a feeling that Sifuna is trying to create his own political, he's trying to craft his own political future, because he knows very well that the majority of Kenyans, especially the young Kenyans who are going to determine his political future, are not at all in agreement of the broad-based government right now. And therefore, speaking in that manner is a way of creating his own political atmosphere, trying to tell people, the audience, the young Kenyans out there, that I am not in bed with this government. I'm not in agreement with this government. And then one day, when these young people, when Sifuna would be seeking for electoral position, and then he would tell them, I told these guys, I was opposing these people right from the start. I was consistent. Sifuna was trying maybe to just create a political atmosphere for him so that he can have a very secure future, because he knows that so many people who are right now in ODM and even in the Kenya Kwanza, these are old people, senior people who might in the next 5 to 10 years would be out of the political arena, and therefore likes of Sifuna would be the one to be watched. And therefore Sifuna might be creating his own political atmosphere so he can be referred to as someone who is very bold. That is my other analysis. So yeah, these 2 points came in my mind. One is that either Sifuna was speaking on behalf of ODM or Baba, and that Baba doesn't want to come out so boldly, he just want to be speaking through Sifuna and likes of Rengo. Or if Sifuna was speaking his mind, then he is trying to distance himself away from the broad-based government and the failure of the government of Ruto and ODM, so that he would be seen by Kenyans, the potential voters, that he is not part of what is actually making life hard for these young Kenyans, so that the young Kenyans who are the potential voters would one day say, this guy has always been with us. He was with us right from the start, and therefore he deserves to be given a political award, you know. So I feel that is the reason why Sifuna spoke the way he spoke. One is that he either spoke, he was ordered by Raila Amolo Odinga to speak the way he did, or he spoke because he was trying to craft his own political atmosphere so that in future he can still be relevant in the face of the young Kenyans who are suffering from the government of Ruto. You know, that is my analysis of the interview of Sifuna that he had with Yvonne at Citizen TV. Very interesting, and there are so many people who are criticizing that Sifuna should resign. Others are saying Sifuna shouldn't be speaking in that way, where during the day you are, I mean at night you're enjoying being in government, and then the other day you come out and just criticize Ruto or the Kenya Kwanza government. He should be bold, and so a lot of criticism comes out. But I think Sifuna has really been liked so much by the young Kenyans, especially the interview that he did. Like, it resonates, whatever thing he spoke during that interview resonated mainly with the young Kenyans. I think that is the position of so many young Kenyans. The position that Sifuna took, what he was speaking was actually what the young people wanted to hear. So I think it's going to be really hard for ODM to take a stand to fire Sifuna, because firing Sifuna would be a political suicide for the ODM political party. I feel if they fire Sifuna at this moment, it's worst. it's gonna be worst on them. They would be like playing with their reputation, and I feel that ODM would get unpopular if they do that. If they try to fire Sifuna as SG, it's gonna be like a political suicide. And by the way, Sifuna was also asked if he's to be asked to step aside as the SG. He said he's ready to do that. He would do that without even blinking. He would step aside, because even when he was taking the role of SG, he was asked to do that and he accepted. So if that person who gave him that role comes and asks him that, Sifuna, we are not longer confident with the way how you play your role in this position, we would love you to step aside. He said he will do that. And therefore Sifuna seems to be ready, because I mean he is ready for anything right now, and it's gonna be hard to just fire him. Very, very hard. So yeah, so that's mainly my analysis regarding the recent interview of Honorable Sifuna, the Senator for Nairobi County, and also the General Secretary of ODM. So thank you so much for watching, and if you find this video interesting, please, as I said, subscribe. It's a way of making this channel grow. And also see you next time when we'll have our next video. Thank you so much.